Good morning, class 9 students. This is your chapter number 9, The Accidental Tourist, from the Moments Supplementary Reader, and it is written by Bill Bryson. Over here in this chapter, the narrator himself has written about his own personality. He is always confused regarding traveling. The most haunting thing in his life is the traveling. Why? Because whenever he travels, whenever he goes out, whenever he's out of his house, the narrator Bill Bryson always intentionally or unintentionally he falls into problems, and that is why he's telling us that he's always confused about the things and he keep on messing up with the things, whether he's in the flight, at the station, at any ceremony, or wherever he goes out all alone, he faces problems. Now over here, he is a kind of a confused personality. He wonders that how people manage to do things without any difficulty. Why? Because he himself couldn't do anything in a normal way. He always gets confused, and he gives two examples. One, what happened to him once, he goes many times to find the lavatory in a cinema, but he ends up standing in an alley on the wrong side of the self locking door. This first tragedy. Then second, he often forgets the number of his hotel room whenever he goes 2 to 3 times a day at the hotel reception and to inquire about it. Whenever he is out from his home, and whenever he takes any hotel room, he always just forgets about his room number, and then the only thing left for him is to go at the hotel reception to inquire about it. Then what happened once at the Logan airport in Boston, he just, over here the narrator Bill Bryson, he just shares his personal experience about that Logan airport. Once he was traveling with his family for enjoying Easter holidays in England, and while checking in, what happened, suddenly he remembered that he had recently joined British Airways frequent flyer program, and it was in his carry-on bag, and the moment he tried to open it, the zip of his bag, it got jammed. Now in order to unjam it, he pulled it harder and harder, and at last it just snapped open, and the moment it opened, everything in the bill was spilled out far and wide on the floor in all the directions. That means whichever articles were there inside the bag, due to his unzipping of the bag harder and harder, they all spilled on the floor. And now the lid of the tobacco tin was opened. He watched very helplessly because that tobacco tin was very expensive, and he thought that again he had to go and opt for that tobacco. Now then, all of a sudden, it was not over. He noticed that there was blood that was coming out of his finger. Why? Because he gnashed while opening the zip, and in this panic his hair stood up, and to his surprise the wife was looking at him continuously. Now, there are many other experiences about the poet that he shares with us. In another flight, he was helpless in crash position when he just leaned over to tie his shoelaces, and someone was sitting a seat ahead of him. And the moment he bent down to tie his shoelace, the front person, he threw his seat back into full recline, and that person, this narrator, he was jammed over there. Second occasion was, he just knocked on to a soft drink twice into the lap of a nun that was sitting beside him. He just carelessly went and he just opted for that soft drink, and the soft drink just, it was, he just dropped that soft drink twice onto the lap of a nun and the lady that was sitting beside him in the flight. Now third worst experience was that he, when his mouth, his chin and gums and tongue were colored in navy blue. He was tucking one end of his leaking pen while in the conversation with a pretty lady, and he did not pay attention that the pen was leaking. And meanwhile, after some time, he realized that the pen, the navy blue ink, got spread all over his chin, gums, and tongue. Everything was colored in navy blue. Now, after that incident, the precautions, his wife always takes precautions, and while they travel together, the wife, what does she do? She asks the children to take the lid off the food for daddy, or put their hoods up when daddy cuts his meat. They help the narrator when they are traveling, and now he describes whenever he travels alone, just to avoid all these mishaps, he never eats or drinks anything, or neither he bends to tie his laces. Now, never got frequent flyer miles. After flying so many, he had always been asking for the collection of the air miles. He often forgets to ask about the flyer miles of the clerk. He has flown about 100,000 miles but has only 212 air miles divided between 23 airlines. He could never go to Bali in first class. People often went to Bali in first class just by using their traveling air miles, but he could never collect. Why? Because again he is irresponsible by nature. Now once he was going to Australia by air, and he was quite expecting to collect quite a lot of air miles, for the distance was long, and over there he gave his card to the check-in clerk to fill in the air miles, but she refused. Why? Because the name on the card was W Bryson, while on the ticket it was B Bryson. So that is why he was not entitled. Firstly, he always used to forget to count his air miles and the times he had traveled, and now when he was remembering and he went to take the privilege of that air mile to take in with the card, the name that was haunting him, the name in the card was W Bryson, and while on the ticket it was B Bryson. So it was all about his foolishness and irresponsible nature.